All right, so tomorrow's half yearly has the Tiger King on it. First things first, don't panic. Panic won't help. What you need is a targeted approach. See, these midterm exams, they're not trying to trick you with weird comparisons between chapters. They just want to see if you've really mastered the essentials of this story.
But I feel so overwhelmed. It feels like there's just so much to cover. What do I actually need to remember?
Okay, relax. Take a breath. We're not going to try to memorize the whole book. That's impossible. We're going to focus on the good stuff, the stuff examiners love to ask about. We're talking about the prophecy, the king's massive ego, his hubris, and that absolutely brilliant, unexpected ending. Ready? Let's dive in.
All right, first things first. We have got to have a rock-solid grip on the basic story. It all comes down to the plot, right? The king's obsession with power, and of course that wild prophecy that gets the whole thing started.
So, what's the actual story here? Let's break it down. It all kicks off with this 10-day-old prince who, get this, starts talking. And what does he do? He mocks the astrologers who predict he'll die by a tiger. So he makes this vow to kill 100 tigers just to prove fate wrong. And this vow, it becomes his entire life's obsession. I mean, he bans hunting for everyone else, he bribes a British officer's wife with a ton of diamond rings just to keep his tiger-killing quest on track, and he even marries a princess just because her kingdom has a good tiger population. Wild, right? He thinks he finally nails the 100th tiger, but, and this is the whole point, the thing that actually gets him in the end is a tiny, ironic sliver from a wooden toy tiger.
Okay, so the main takeaway here is that this guy is just incredibly arrogant and laser-focused on one thing. His whole life is just this obsessive quest to beat destiny.
Exactly. You nailed it. And the author uses that arrogance to create this brilliant satire. I mean, just look at how he abuses his power. He doubles the land taxes on his own people just because he's frustrated, and the whole story is just dripping with dramatic irony. That's where we, the readers, know something the character doesn't, like the fact that the 100 tiger just fainted. It didn't even die. And it all builds up to that classic final line from the surgeons, which is just the perfect satirical punchline.
Okay, so for your short answer questions, you've got to lock in these two major themes. You'll see them everywhere. First up, fate versus free will. The king spends his whole life fighting destiny, right? Only for it to sneak up on him in the most boring, unexpected way. And second, the satire on power. The story is a total critique of rulers who care more about their own ego than about their actual people. Now let's see how these themes pop up in the key extracts you'll be tested on.
Right, Section 2. Look, half-yearly exams, they love to zero in on specific, super important passages. They're not trying to be tricky, I promise. They just want to see if you get the big moments, you know? The scenes where the themes we just talked about really come to life.
Okay, let's start with this quote. All those who are born will one day have to die. Tell us the manner of that death. I mean, come on. These are the first words out of the baby prince's mouth. It's just so bold, so unbelievable, and it sets the tone for the entire story.
So, why do examiners love this bit so much? Well, for one, it instantly establishes that satirical, totally over-the-top tone, but it also shows the prince is not just arrogant, he's also weirdly rational. He accepts that he's going to die, he just wants to know how. A question on this part is really just testing if you're paying attention to his character right from the get-go.
Okay, next up, the British officer episode. This scene is huge. It's a major test of what the king really cares about.
And this scene just brilliantly shows the conflict raging inside the king. On one hand, he is stubborn as a mule about his vow. Nobody else is killing a tiger in his kingdom, period. But on the other hand, he's absolutely terrified of the British and the thought of losing his power. So what's his solution? He just raids the state treasury, spending a fortune on diamond rings to bribe the officer's wife. It's a perfect example of this completely messed up priorities.
All right, now we're at the big one, the climax of his entire hunt. This is the moment he thinks he's done it. He's beaten fate by shooting that 100th tiger.
So here's the kicker. It's all about dramatic irony. The king is so full of himself, so consumed by his own victory, he doesn't even bother to check if the tiger is actually dead. He totally misses. The poor animal just faints from the shock of the bullet flying past. But his hunters, they're terrified they'll lose their jobs, so they kill it in secret. And the king walks away celebrating, completely clueless about what really happened.
And that brings us to maybe the most famous line in the whole story. It's that iconic, chillingly funny thing the surgeons say after operating on the king's infected hand.
I mean, this one sentence is the ultimate satirical punchline of the whole story. It just perfectly sums up the incompetence all around the king, and it's the peak of the story's irony. Think about it. How can an operation be successful if the patient dies? It makes no sense. And it confirms that the grand prophecy wasn't fulfilled by some magnificent, terrifying beast, but by a cheap, splintery toy.
Okay, exam day is all about being quick. You're under pressure, so you need some fast memory hooks to pull these details out of your brain. Let's run through a few key ones you absolutely have to know.
First up, his catchphrase, "Let tigers beware." That little line is everything. It's his arrogance and his challenge to fate all rolled into one.
Next, a number you gotta remember. 300,000 rupees, or 3 lakh. Don't just dismiss this as a random detail. It's the insane cost of those 50 diamond rings. It puts a real number on his abuse of power.
And the number 99. That's how many tiger skins were on his wall. 99. It's such a powerful image of how painfully close he got, which, of course, makes his actual downfall even more ironic.
And finally, the weapon of his destruction. Remember, it wasn't a fang, it wasn't a claw. It was a tiny sliver of wood from a toy. This ridiculously small, insignificant thing is what takes down the mighty Tiger King.
Okay, let's bring it all home with a final confidence boost. The most important thing to remember is that this is about strategy, not panic. You don't need to memorize every single word.
Okay, yeah, this all makes sense. But I'm still kind of worried about those tricky questions, you know? The ones that come out of nowhere and you just haven't prepared for. That's a totally fair worry. But listen, remember what I said at the start. Half-yearly questions almost never ask you to compare different chapters. They want to see how well you know this story. So just focus on those high-yield passages and themes we covered. Grind out some practice MCQs. That'll help you nail the small details. Look, this exam is just a checkup. It's diagnosing your foundation. You've got this, seriously. So I'm going to leave you with one final thought, a little challenge to really sharpen your analytical skills. Don't just be able to summarize the plot, ask yourself the why questions. For example, why is the king's death by a dinky little toy tiger a much more powerful and biting piece of satire than that big, grand prophecy at the beginning? If you can start answering questions like that, you'll know you've absolutely mastered this.